I've got good news and bad news to share with you this morning. David Stockman, former Reagan White House budget director, I just saw his morning post. He says it looks like Social Security will be bankrupt in 12 years. Interestingly enough, that's the year I turned 65. Well, I'd had no retirement plans anyway. That's not the good news, I suppose. It's 9:34. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And just 65 is the temperature, I should point out, too. So if you're outside for a walk still, it's not hot yet. A good time of day to actually go out and get a little exercise and get a little sunshine. I don't know if this is good news or not either, but I think it really speaks volumes about how we define crime in Twin Falls. Letter to the editor. Shoes are missing. This at magicvalley.com. And the writer is a Glenn Anderson from Twin Falls. It's a very short letter. And he asks help. Anyone who lives in the 620 Rimview area, can you please tell your beagle to please return my shoes? He or she might even get a doggy treat. Now, if you own a beagle that brought home a pair of shoes last night, you now know who owns them. And your dog can get a treat if they're returned. There will be no charges pressed whatsoever. Your dog will be forgiven in this particular situation. I was listening to those crime numbers the other day when we had our prosecutor in studio, when Grant Lobes was here Tuesday morning, and he mentioned that the crime numbers are up in Twin Falls. They're down slightly in Idaho, but they're up slightly in Twin Falls. And some of those, they're not very nice things that are taking place. On the other hand, I have friends who live in places that are half the size of Twin Falls that have far more crime. So a beagle wandering away with your shoes might just be about the worst fear you have if you live in this particular area. Isn't that a nice thing? For all the topics we cover, these doom and gloom topics, if the neighbor's beagle steals your shoes, when I was a boy, we had some neighbors and they owned a dog. It was a black lab, back before the labs were really a popular breed. Now, in the last 20 years, the lab has often vied for being the most popular breed in the country. But they had this big black lab named Cody, and Mr. Thompson didn't believe that you should leash that dog. So Cody wandered all over town, and why? Everybody else would have had their dog picked up and they would have been fine, but for some reason it just didn't happen. Well, they were nice people. I grant them that. But the dog would wander all over town, and if you were playing with a tennis ball or a baseball or anything like that, Cody would just come running along if he saw you doing that, scoop that ball out of the air. But he didn't stop and return it or play with you. He would run away. So they must have, at the Thompsons' house, they must have had an entire room consisting of about, a couple of thousand tennis balls and some baseballs and wiffle balls and everything else that this dog could get its mouth on and bring home. One day, my brother and I were playing outside the school, and we were was across the street from a grocery store. And my brother was trying to get rid of Cody because Cody was trying to steal our balls from us. And so my brother saw this wrapper on the ground. It looked like trash. And he grabbed that thing and he flung it. And Cody ran over, and as it fell out of the air, something had been inside that foil wrapper. It looked like chocolate. Now, dogs aren't supposed to eat chocolate. It can be bad for their health. And these couple of small chunks of chocolate dropped on the ground. And Cody gobbled them up and then wagged his tail like he was happy and ran off. And then we discovered that what my brother had tossed into the air was actually X-Lax. I don't know that cured Cody of stealing everybody's balls when he was out around town, but I'm sure that when he got home that the Thompsons got their comeuppance. 9:38, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 66. The federal government, check this one out. This comes from the Daily Caller. Feds claim they need years to list all government programs. It will take the government 2 years just to list all federal programs, and that's, quote, not a way to run a government, unquote, the comptroller of the United States told Congress Wednesday. The Taxpayers' Right to Know Act, which was approved last week by the Oversight Committee, clarifies the definition of a government program. Representative Mark Meadows, this is the guy who'd like to unseat John Boehner as the Speaker of the House. Boehner, by the way, if this was England, you'd have a no-confidence vote, and the Prime Minister would be toppled. But Boehner is not allowing the vote to take place because he well knows he could lose. Representative Mark Meadows from North Carolina said the federal government's study of hungry and angry spouses stabbing voodoo dolls illustrates why Congress needs to know exactly how federal agencies are spending money. You heard that right. You heard that right. Let me just give you a little bit more. This is a quote from him. To spend $331,000 to stick pens in a voodoo doll may be important to someone, but when we have so many unbelievable needs out there, to make an informed decision, we need data, unquote, said Meadows, who is chairman of the Oversight Subcommittee. Yes, the government funded studies of spouses putting needles into voodoo dolls, apparently to see how that impacted stress levels, or if indeed, I guess, the voodoo actually worked. Well, hey, if Detroit can put up statues of Satan, and Time Magazine comes out and covers it, then why can't government be promoting the use of voodoo dolls with your tax dollars? 20 minutes away from 10 o'clock, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Big companies in this country are trying to tell Christians they need to shut up when it comes to promoting same-sex marriage. In fact, one of them makes a computer that actually has a fruit as an emblem. I get a chance in the next 20 minutes, I'll share that too.